This is the new chapter, index number. So this is the syllabus for techniques for business decision second BBA Kuampu University 6th semester. This is the session number 25. In this session we can discuss or present the topic meaning and purpose of index number, limitations of index number, steps in construction of index number and notations of index number. So in this session we can discuss the topic introduction, meaning, definitions, features and steps or problems of construction of index number. Next is advantages and limitations of index numbers and notations of index number. Learning objective of this chapter or this session, the concepts this session help the student to be familiar with the term index number. Index number ಅಂದರೆ ಕನ್ನಡದಲ್ಲಿ ಸೂಚ್ಯಾಂಕಗಳು ಅಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ. Next is this session help the student to understand the concept of index number. Session outcome of this session or lesson, student should be able to understand the concept of index number. Student also be able to express their opinion regarding the index number. Next is introduction to index number. Index numbers are widely used around the world to relate information about stock markets, inflation, sales, exports and imports, agricultures and many other things. Some examples of specific indexes are the employment cost index, price index for the construction, index of manufacturing capacity, producer price index, consumer price index, Dow Jones Industrial Average, index of output and Nikkei 225 average. This section, although recognizing the importance of stock indexes and others, will focus on price index. So next is what are index number? So it is a statistics which assigns a single number to several individuals statistics in order to quantify trends. Two or more time periods are involved, one of which is the base time period. In other words, index numbers is a statistical tool for measuring relative change in a group of relative variables over two or more different times. Index numbers measure relative changes in the price of a sum of representative data. In simple, index numbers are expressed in percentage. So next is some more meanings of index number. Index numbers are specialized averages designed to measure the change in a group of related variables over a period of time. Index numbers have today become one of the most widely used statistical devices, and there is a hardly any field where they are not used. In other words, index numbers is a statistical tool for measuring relative change in a group of relative variables over two or more different times. Index numbers measure relative changes in the price of a sum of representative data. Index numbers are expressed in percentage. An index number is a statistical device for measuring relative changes in magnitude of a group of related variables over a time. Index numbers are expressed in terms of percentage. Of the two periods, the period with which the comparison is to be made is known as the base period. Index numbers for base period is always taken as 100. Therefore, the study of index numbers helps us to know percentage change in the values of different variables over a period of time with reference to the base year. Next is some of the definitions of index number. According to Spiegel, an index number is a statistical measure designed to show changes in a variable or a group of related variables with respect to time, geographical location, or other characteristics such as income, profession, etc. So next is another definition given by Maslow. It is a numerical value characterizing the change in complex economic phenomena over a period of time or space. Next is according to John Riffin, index numbers are used to measure changes over a time in magnitudes which are not capable of direct measurement. In the words of Tuttle, an index number is a single ratio, usually in percentage, which measures the combined, that is an average, changes of several variables between two different times, places, or situations. In the words of Edgeworth, index numbers show by its variation the changes in a magnitude which is not susceptible either of an accurate measurement in itself or of direct valuation in practice. Next is some of the importance of index number. So first and foremost point, the first point is help in framing a suitable policies. Index numbers provide a guidance in administrative policy determination. For example, in determining dearness allowance, now income tax D ಅಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ, in dearness allowance of the employees, cost of living index are used. Next is second important importance, they reveal the trends. Index numbers are most widely used for determining the commercial and industrial trends. By examining the index numbers of industrial production of last few years, we can conclude about the trend production. Next point, importance, helps in comparative study. The data which cannot be compared with the help of simple averages. Index numbers can be used because they are in a relative form. So next importance, important in forecasting, that is called ಮುಂದಾಲೋಚನೆ ಅಂತ ನಾವು ಏನು ಕರಿತೀವಿ. ಸೊ ಅಂಥ ಟೈಮಲ್ಲಿ ನಮಗೆ ಸೂಚ್ಯಾಂಕಗಳು ತುಂಬ ಹೆಲ್ಪ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಹೇಗಂದರೆ ಇಂಡೆಕ್ಸ್ ನಂಬರ್ಸ್ ಆರ್ ಆಫನ್ ಯೂಸ್ಡ್ ಇನ್ ದ ಟೈಮ್ ಸೀರೀಸ್ ಅನಾಲಿಸಿಸ್, ದ ಹಿಸ್ಟಾರಿಕಲ್ ಸ್ಟಡಿ ಆಫ್ ಲಾಂಗ್ ಟರ್ಮ್ ಟ್ರೆಂಡ್, seasonal variations, etc. So next importance, universal application. Index numbers are useful in economic, commercial, social and in every field such as agriculture, etc. Next is features of index number. Already I can give the meaning definition ಹೇಳಿದಿವಿ. So ಮತ್ತೊಂದ್ಸಲಿ ಹೇಳೋದಾದರೆ, what are the characteristics and features of index number? They are expressed in percentages. ಸೊ ಪರ್ಸೆಂಟೇಜ್ ಅಂದ ತಕ್ಷಣ ಸೊ ನಾವು ಶೇಕಡಾವರದಲ್ಲಿ ಹೇಳಲೇಬೇಕು ಇಂಡೆಕ್ಸ್ ನಂಬರ್ಗಳನ್ನು. ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಇಸ್ ದೇ ಆರ್ ಸ್ಪೆಷಲ್ ಟೈಪ್ ಆಫ್ ಆ್ಯಾವರೇಜಸ್. ಸೊ ಹಾಗಾಗಿ ಮೀನು, ಮೀಡಿಯನ್ ಮೂರು ಕೂಡ ನಾವು ಆ್ಯಾವರೇಜಸ್ ಅಂತ ಕರೆಯೋದಾದರೆ, ಸೊ ಇಂಡೆಕ್ಸ್ ನಂಬರ್ ಇದು ಒಂದು ರೀತಿಯ ಒಂದು ಸ್ಪೆಷಲ್ ಟೈಪ್ ಆಫ್ ಆ್ಯಾವರೇಜಸ್. ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಇಸ್ ದ ಮೆಜರ್ ದ ಎಫೆಕ್ಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಚೇಂಜ್ ಓವರ್ ಎ ಪೀರಿಯಡ್ ಆಫ್ ಟೈಮ್. ಸೊ ಹಾಗಾಗಿ ಇದು ಒಂದು ಪೀರಿಯಡಿಂದ ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಪೀರಿಯಡಿಗೆ ಏನು ಎಫೆಕ್ಟ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನು ಸೊ ಸ್ಪಷ್ಟವಾಗಿ ಹೇಳುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಇದನ್ನು ನಾವು ಬೇರೆ ರೀತಿಯ ಡಯಾಗ್ರಾಮ್ಸಲ್ಲಿ ಹೇಳೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಪ್ರಯತ್ನ ಪಟ್ಟಿದ್ದೀನಿ. ಫೀಚರ್ಸ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಕ್ಯಾರೆಕ್ಟರಿಸ್ಟಿಕ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಇಂಡೆಕ್ಸ್ ನಂಬರ್. ಇಂಡೆಕ್ಸ್ ನಂಬರ್ಸ್ ಆರ್ ಸ್ಪೆಷಲೈಸ್ಡ್ ಆ್ಯಾವರೇಜಸ್. ಇಂಡೆಕ್ಸ್ ನಂಬರ್ಸ್ ಆರ್ ಯೂಸ್ಡ್ ಫಾರ್ ಕಂಪ್ಯಾರಿಸನ್ ಸಚ್ ವೇರಿಯಬಲ್ಸ್ ವಿಚ್ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಡಿಫರೆಂಟ್ ಯೂನಿಟ್ಸ್. ಇಂಡೆಕ್ಸ್ ನಂಬರ್ಸ್ ಆರ್ ಮೆಜರ್ ಆಫ್ ರಿಲೇಟಿವ್ ಚೇಂಜ್. Index numbers measure the relative, that means percentage changes in the variables over a period of time. They are expressed in percentage. Next feature is the measure changes in composite and complex. Index numbers are used to measure changes in magnitude of certain phenomena which are not capable of direct measurement. So next feature is basis of comparison. They are constructed to make a comparison over different time periods with reference some base year. Index numbers measure changes and compare economic conditions of different business units, different places in relation to some base year. So next is, what are the steps or problems in the construction of index number? ಇಷ್ಟಕ್ಕೊಂದು ಗುಣಲಕ್ಷಣಗಳು ಇರುವಂಥ ಇಂಡೆಕ್ಸ್ ನಂಬರಲ್ಲಿ ಸೊ ಏನೇನು ಪ್ರಾಬ್ಲಮನ್ನು ನಾವು ಫೇಸ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾಗತ್ತೆ, ವಾಟ್ ಆರ್ ದ ಸ್ಟೆಪ್ಸ್ ಟು ಬಿ ಬಿಫೋರ್ ಕನ್ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಷನ್ ಆಫ್ ಇಂಡೆಕ್ಸ್ ನಂಬರ್? ದ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಫಾರ್ಮೋಸ್ಟ್ ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ ಈಸ್ ನಂಬರ್ 1, ಡಿಫೈನಿಂಗ್ ದ ಪರ್ಪಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಇಂಡೆಕ್ಸ್ ನಂಬರ್. ಸೊ ಡಿಫೈನಿಂಗ್ ದ purpose of index number. Next, number 2, selection of item. Next is selection of a base period. Next is selection of prices. Next is selection of weights. So selection of weights ಅಂದರೆ ನಾವು ಕ್ವಿಂಟಲಲ್ಲಿ ತೊಗೋಬೇಕು, ಕೆ ಜಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ತೊಗೋಬೇಕು, ಮಣದಲ್ಲಿ ತೊಗೋಬೇಕು, ಸೊ ಹೀಗೆ ಸೊ ಗ್ರಾಮಲ್ಲಿ ತೊಗೋಬೇಕು ಅನ್ನೋ ಸಮಸ್ಯೆ ಬರುತ್ತೆ. ಹಾಗಾಗಿ ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಚಾಯ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಎನ್ ಆವರೇಜ್. ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಪ್ರಾಬ್ಲಮ್ ಈಸ್ ನಥಿಂಗ್ ಬಟ್ ಚಾಯ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಎನ್ ಆವರೇಜ್. ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಚಾಯ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ದ ಫಾರ್ಮುಲಾ. ಯಾವ ಫಾರ್ಮುಲಾ ಹಾಕಬೇಕು ಅನ್ನೋದು ಕೂಡ ಒಂದು ಸಮಸ್ಯೆಯಾಗಿ ನಮ್ಮನ್ನು ಕಾಡ್ಬೋದು. ಸೊ ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಅಡ್ವಾಂಟೇಜಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಇಂಡೆಕ್ಸ್ ನಂಬರ್. So what are the advantages of index number? The first is helpful in formulation of policies. So ಪಾಲಿಸಿಗಳನ್ನು ಫಾರ್ಮ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ, ಫಾರ್ಮುಲೇಷನ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಇಂಡೆಕ್ಸ್ ನಂಬರ್ ನಮಗೆ ತುಂಬ ಹೆಲ್ಪ್ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಅಡ್ವಾಂಟೇಜ್, ಹೆಲ್ಪ್ಫುಲ್ ಇನ್ ಮೆಜರಿಂಗ್ ಇನ್ಫ್ಲೇಷನ್. ಸೊ ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಹೆಲ್ಪ್ಫುಲ್ ಇನ್ ನೋಯಿಂಗ್ ದ ಚೇಂಜಸ್ ಇನ್ ಸ್ಟ್ಯಾಂಡರ್ಡ್ ಆಫ್ ಲಿವಿಂಗ್. ಸೊ ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಅಡ್ವಾಂಟೇಜ್, ಯೂಸ್ಫುಲ್ ಟು ಬಿಸ್ನೆಸ್ ಮ್ಯಾನ್, important device of business world. So next is useful to assess exports and imports. Next is useful to the government in studying the changes in trend. Next is limitations of index number. They are simply rough indications of the relative changes. The choice of representative commodities may lead to false conclusions as they are based on the samples. Next is there may be errors in the choice of base periods or weights, etc. Next is comparisons of changes in variables over long periods are not reliable. Next is they may be useful for one purpose but not for another. Next is they are specialized types of averages and hence are subject to all those limitations which our average suffers from. Next is limited coverage. Index numbers are based on a sample item. Next is limitations of index numbers. Qualitative changes are not a quantities are ignored. Next is qualitative changes are ignored and quantities only taken. Ignores changes in the consumption pattern. So next is limited applicability. Next is misleading results. Index numbers may not be perfect in a wrong base year has been taken, wrong formula or wrong weight, age is taken, etc. So next is it is totally based on averages. That is the main problem is index numbers are based on averages. So it is a given in a figure. Purpose of construction of index number. The purpose of construction must be rigidly defined. It is not for all the purpose. Every index numbers have specific use. If the purpose of construction is not clearly defined, it will be wastage of time and effort. ಸೊ ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಸೆಲೆಕ್ಷನ್ ಆಫ್ ಎ ಬೇಸ್ ಇಯರ್. ಯಾವ ಇಯರನ್ನು ಬೇಸ್ ಆಗಿ ಇಯರ್ ತೊಗೊಳ್ಬೇಕು ಅನ್ನೋದೇ ದೊಡ್ಡ ಪ್ರಾಬ್ಲಮ್. ಸೊ ಹಾಗಾಗಿ ದ ಬೇಸ್ ಇಯರ್ ಮಸ್ಟ್ ಬಿ ನಾರ್ಮಲ್ ಇಯರ್, ದಟ್ ಈಸ್ ವಿತೌಟ್ ಅಬ್ನಾರ್ಮಲಿಟೀಸ್ ಲೈಕ್ ವಾರ್, ಅರ್ಥ್ಕ್ವೇಕ್, ಇನ್ಫ್ಲೇಷನ್, ಎಕ್ಸೆಟ್ರಾ. ಇಟ್ ಶುಡ್ ನಾಟ್ ಬಿ ವೆರಿ ಡಿಸ್ಟೆಂಟ್ ಫ್ರಮ್ ಕರೆಂಟ್ ಇಯರ್. ದ ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಈಸ್ ದ ಬೇಸ್ ಇಯರ್ ಪೀರಿಯಡ್ ಶುಡ್ ಬಿ ಕ್ಲಿಯರ್ಲಿ ಡಿಫೈನ್ಡ್. ಸೊ ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ವೆರಿ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್ ಪ್ರಾಬ್ಲಮ್ ಈಸ್ ಸೆಲೆಕ್ಷನ್ ಆಫ್ ಎ ನಂಬರ್ ಆಫ್ ಐಟಮ್ಸ್. It refers to the collection of data which should be determined the purpose for which the index number is construction. ಯಾವ ಉದ್ದೇಶಕ್ಕೋಸ್ಕರ ನಾವು ಮಾಡ್ತಿದ್ದೀವಿ ಅದನ್ನು ಮೊದಲು ತಿಳ್ಕೋಬೇಕಾಗತ್ತೆ. ಅದು ಗೊತ್ತಿಲ್ಲ ಅಂದರೆ ನಾವು ಮಾಡೋದೆಲ್ಲ ಟೈಮ್ ವೇಸ್ಟ್ ಅಥವಾ ಇಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಎ ಟೋಟಲಿ ವೇಸ್ಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಅವರ್ ಎಫರ್ಟ್. ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಈಸ್ only standardized or graded items should be included so that a reasonable standard of accuracy can be maintained. ನಾವು ತಗೊಳ್ಳೋಂಥ ಟೈಮಲ್ಲಿ ಸ್ಟ್ಯಾಂಡರ್ಡೈಸ್ಡ್ ಐಟಮ್ಸನ್ನು ತಗೋಬೇಕು, ಇಲ್ಲದಿದ್ದರೆ ಸೊ ನಾವು ತಗೊಳ್ಳೋಂಥ ಸೂಚ್ಯಾಂಕಗಳು ತಪ್ಪು ಅರ್ಥವನ್ನು ಕೊಡುತ್ತೆ ಅಂತ. ಸೊ ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಸೆಲೆಕ್ಷನ್ ಆಫ್ ಸಿಸ್ಟಮ್ ಆಫ್ ವೇಯಿಂಗ್. It refers to the assigning relative importance to the different items included in the construction of index number. There are two types of indices, weighted and unweighted. Weighted, all commodities are given in equal importance. Unweighted include quantity weights like commodities are given importance according to the amount of quantity, and value weight importance is given according to the amount of expenditures. Nothing but so price into quantity. P means price and Q means quantity. Next is selection of an appropriate formula. There is so many formula should be so comes in the index number, which is the best formula. So it is not a given. So therefore the selection of appropriate formula. Selection of a formula from Laspier's method, Pasch's method, Fisher's method, Derbyshire Bowles method. We can't depend on one formula, and the selection of dependence upon type and purpose of index number. So in this chapter, some of the notations used in index number, it is very important to solve the problem in the next coming sessions. So you can base period is they are selected for the comparison. Next is current year, the year for which comparison are ಸಾಟ್, ಯಾವ ವರ್ಷದಿಂದ ಯಾವ ವರ್ಷ ಕಂಪೇರ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಿದ್ದೀವಿ ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನು ಹೇಳಬೇಕಾಗತ್ತೆ. ಅಲ್ಲಿಗೆ ಪಿ ಮೀನ್ಸ್ ಪ್ರೈಸ್, ಕ್ಯೂ ಮೀನ್ಸ್ ಕ್ವಾಂಟಿಟಿ. ದಟ್ ಮೀನ್ಸ್ ಸೊ ಬೇಸ್ ಇಯರ್ ಈಸ್ ರೆಪ್ರೆಸೆಂಟೆಡ್ ಇಸ್ ಎ 0, ಕರೆಂಟ್ ಇಯರ್ ಈಸ್ ರೆಪ್ರೆಸೆಂಟೆಡ್ ಇಸ್ ಎ 1. ಸೊ ಅಲ್ಲಿಗೆ P0 ರೆಪ್ರೆಸೆಂಟ್ ಪ್ರೈಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಎ ಕಮಾಡಿಟಿ ಇನ್ ದ ಬೇಸ್ ಇಯರ್. ಸೊ P1 ರೆಪ್ರೆಸೆಂಟ್ ಪ್ರೈಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಎ ಕಮಾಡಿಟಿ ಇನ್ ದ ಕರೆಂಟ್ ಇಯರ್. So Q means quantity. So Q0 means quantity of a commodity consumed or purchased during the base year. So next is Q1 represent 1 means current year, that means quantity of a commodity consumed or purchased during the current year. So you can already mattonsali helodadre base year is represented is a 0, current year is represented is a 1. P means represent price. Next is Q represent quantity. Here W represent weight assigned to a commodity according to its relative importance in the group. So next is P01 price index number for the base year with reference to the current year. So P10 the narration is price index number for the current year with reference to the base year. Next is Q01 quantity index number for the base year with reference to the current year. Next is Q10 the narration represent quantity index number for the current year with reference to the base year. So price quantity relatives are nothing but the price quantity corresponding to different time periods with expressed as ratio to the base year price quantity as a price quantity. Relatives like P1 divided by P0, P2 divided by P0, P3 divided by P0, likewise Q1 divided by Q0, Q2 divided by Q0, Q3 divided by Q0. So okay, thank you students.